you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Good morning and welcome to the September the 15th edition of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Contact numbers are these 516-453-9921. When you do that, press the number 1 button, please sir, please ma'am, and you will go to the head of the line. You can also contact the show by Gmail, the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. And if we have time, your email will be read today. If not, it will be read at some point in time unless it is deleted. I will not delete it, but it sometimes will automatically be deleted. But the best way to get in contact with the show is by the telephone. Let's see. We are fully stocked with books, so that's good. The chat room is open. Thank you, KJ, who just joined the conversation. Mr. Fuller is live and ready to go. Gmails are in. And let me say this before we get started. Mr. Fuller, there was a lady that called in a few weeks ago, I think up in Canada, about she was having problems in receiving the materials that your company sent to her. She called me and informed me and wanted me to tell you that she did receive all of the material. So she is extremely happy about that. So she wanted me to forward that information on to you. And also, I also want to thank you for my books. I have the original book now, and I am extremely pleased to have all that you have written. So if somebody calls in, I can go back to the old book, which has been requested, according to you, by a lot of people. Well, now I'm there. So if somebody wants to go there, I can turn to both pages, the new expanded edition, and I believe it was the 1984 edition. I do have that now. So thank you, Mr. Fuller, for coming through with that. Thank you very much. Okay. Today being the 15th of September, it is going fast. Okay, Mr. Fuller, let's do this here. This gentleman is from Canada, and he doesn't mind if I call his name. His name is Victor Palmer, and he says this. He says, Mr. Fuller, a counter-racist code show, May the 12th, 2020, racism virus, Georgia shooting, black community by Produce Justice Education. He says, the United Independent Compensatory Concept, the compensatory code is a term that means when expressed in practice, the sum total of everything that is thought, said, or done by one individual, non-white person, who is a victim of racism, victim of white supremacy, that is effective in helping to eliminate racism, white supremacy, and or in helping to make for what was being lost. He put a time counter on this. He said on the show the time counter read 40 minutes and 18 mark. He said that Miriam asked a question referring to page 168 on the third paragraph in the code book. Okay, well, let's get that book out right now, and we'll go to page 168. so we can stay right where he's at. Okay, 168. Now, he says, her question was, are non-white people insane? Your answer was yes. Why? Because we are in a system of white supremacy. 2, how are we supposed to come out of our insanity? Mr. Fuller, your answer was to, quote, replace the system of white supremacy with a system of justice, end of quote. And number 3, is it logical for an insane people to bring about a system of justice? Your answer was by a process of questions and answers. My question to you, Mr. Fuller, continuing from where the third question Marion left off while she was on the show, please, Mr. Fuller, give me an example of a question or questions that I can ask. Then who would the correct person be to ask these questions, and what would lead me as a non-white person out of my insanity? Is this out of balance thinking? I don't think you answered Miriam's questions. As I was listening, I didn't understand your answer.
Well, probably I didn't understand the question either. All questions have answers. Every question that someone has in his or her mind, there is an answer to that question somewhere in the universe. And a non-answer to a question is a non-answer, meaning it's not the correct answer. Every question has a correct answer. Every question, without exception. Otherwise, the question could not exist. That's the compensatory logic. So you can ask any question and ask any number of questions that will lead to what? Revealing whatever the truth is. The truth meaning the answer to the question. And then that will lead to another question maybe, or a series of questions, maybe thousands of questions. And when you get the answers, you are in the process of getting answers to questions that will lead to what? Logically speaking, sanity. Because having questions and having the answers to those questions, the correct answers, because the incorrect answer is not an answer to that question. All questions have a correct answer. So if you answer a question correctly and ask and answer a series of questions about every problem that needs to be solved, and you get the answer to those questions, you are then a sane person. Why? What is sanity? Being able to handle situations as they appear. Being able to solve problems. That is the essence of sanity. Problem solving is sanity in a most constructive manner. If you solve problems in the most constructive manner, every problem that comes up, you are now a sane person. But the world is full of problems that have not been solved. So the world is full of insane people. And the most insane system ever thought up in the minds of people in recorded history is the system of white supremacy. It's an insane system because it's a problem maker. It solves problems. It's the greatest problem solver as far as material things in recorded history, as far as we know. But as far as interaction between people, it's a total failure. And so we need a system of justice that will take care of the interaction between people. We have a lot of correct action. That means dealing with things, but we have thousands of incorrect actions when it comes to interaction between people. And the system of racism is designed not to have a sane interaction between people. And that's why everybody who's in the system is failing at the interactions between people, what we call people relations or politics. I hope that I answered the question. And if I didn't, that calls for more questions.
Okay. He goes on to say that Mr. Fuller, I have race soldiers and their servants trying to isolate me from my problem-solving efforts when I try to participate in discussions about racism when I'm online. How should I address that?
You address it through the process of questions and answers. All problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. Stay away from making a whole lot of statements. Ask questions. Questions about what? Whatever problem you have. Starting with, what problem do I have? You can ask yourself questions. That's the first person to ask questions of. What problem do I have? How did I get this problem? What caused me to have this problem? Whom can I talk to help resolve the problem? You can just go all over the place. But when you start making statements, you're cutting yourself off from answers because you already know what you're going to say. And you haven't said enough to yourself to come up with answers to questions. That's where the problem is. So maybe somebody has answers to your questions, but you have to stay in the question lane and listen for the answers without talking over the answers. Because now you're talking to yourself again, and you're right back where you started from.
Mm-hmm.
You have to always be patient. Once you ask a question, you don't start lending your opinion to what the answer may be. You listen for the answer from somebody else. If you already had the answer, you don't need to be asking the question. That's the logic.
He used the word isolated, and according to the data that he is receiving from whoever is asking the question, he has come up with a determination that he is being isolated by the people who practice white supremacy racism. How should he, since he feels this way, how should he address the isolation? By asking questions?
Yes. All problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. These are laws of logic. A court system is set up. You walk into a courtroom, you have tables, you have chairs. Mostly that's what you're looking at. And then when people begin to file in, you got tables, chairs, and people. Then, once you get the tables, the chairs, and the people, what happens? Someone starts asking questions, and then more questions, and then more questions, and people attempt to answer the questions. The people who are in the chairs sitting at the tables. That's what happens in a court. That's what happens in a university. Chairs, tables, people. And then, following that, questions and answers. All problems, without exception, all since, the beginning of time, I guess, have been solved through the process of questions and answers. Stick to that formula. That's the codified concept. Unless I've been misinformed by the laws of the universe.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, Victor Palmer, if you're listening, there you have it, and we'll go from there. I don't have a name here, but I'm going to go to the phone lines. Let me see if I can get them in here. Okay, a person, and I'm trying to be respectful, from the 803 area code. You are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead with your question, please.
Mr. Bob, I apologize. I should have stated my name. I didn't get a chance to. This is KJJ, and my real name is Jerry. I'm out near Fort Jackson. Mr. Fuller, good morning to both of you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
I have a question. I'm a former soldier, former drill sergeant. What do you do when you are so angry about the soldier?
So angry about what?
JJ, are you there? Can you hear him, Mr. Fuller?
I can't. It seems like it was cut off in mid-sentence.
Yeah, I'm cut off here. Let me see. JJ, are you? I tell you what, JJ, you got cut off. We can't hear you. If you can, call back and I'll have them put you at the head of the line because Mr. Fuller and I cannot hear your question, so Mr. Fuller cannot answer that. I'm going to try one more time. JJ, are you there?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Okay, there you go. Okay, JJ, go ahead. We didn't hear your question. Could you?
Okay. Mr.
Go ahead.
Fuller, I have a question. When you have such subtle cases of racism in certain things, like if you're renting a home, if you're not the owner of the home and you're renting, and you have situations where you're trying to ask questions and you know the racism exists, white supremacy, and you're given the runaround, how do you temper yourself where you're not coming from a position of emotion and being angry and making your situation worse? Because, like I told Mr. Bobby, I'm a soldier and I can identify with your time in the military. You get out and you think you've done something for this country, and you get out and you're treated just as bad as anyone else. So you're starting to see that's a stark reality for the rest of your lifetime. How do you temper that to make your situation more positive as opposed to making it worse when you're coming from a position of anger?
Well, you look at yourself, since you said you were a soldier, you were a prisoner of war before you got in any kind of uniform, because you already had the uniform as a prisoner of war.
Sir.
And being a soldier, you probably understand some of the principles of being a POW.
Yes, sir.
So you were born into a system where someone had declared war on you way before you were in your mother's womb, way before you were conceived. And that's called race war.
Yes,
Someone designated you, if you are classified as a non-white person, as a person who should be locked up in the system of white supremacy. And the system of white supremacy is war. You were in captivity before you were born. So you were born as a POW. As a POW, should not, and this keeps you from getting what you call angry, you should not expect to be treated as anything other than a prisoner of war, because that's how you're being treated. Your prison uniform is the color of your skin. Doesn't make any difference what other type of uniform you wear or whatnot. That doesn't matter. That's just a facade. The color of your skin is your universal prison uniform. That's what you are. You're just a number in prison.
And not to cut you off, sir.
You don't have any rank. You have zero rank in the hierarchy of people on what we call the planet Earth. You have to really, if there is a bottom, you're below the bottom of everything before you were born. And if you look at it that way, and I usually sometimes talk about the movie Shawshank Redemption, and if you see that movie, Andy Dufresne, a prisoner understood, hey, I was a banker when I was out in the world, you might say, quote unquote. Now I'm just shuffling along with the rest of the prisoners. I'm nobody. I mean, it's just a number. So I have to be persistent in answer to your question. What do you do to keep from getting emotional? And the frame knew what his situation is. You're in a system of white supremacy. You are not in any other system. Haven't been in the military or whatever you want to call it. I don't care what it is. Your prison uniform is the color of your skin, and the color of your skin has condemned you as being a nothing but a criminal. You have committed the worst crime in the system of white supremacy that can be committed, and that is you have color in your skin. That's your crime. Number one crime. That's a triple, quadruple, infinity felony of the worst type. That's what a white supremacist, that's what a white person is supposed to see when they look at you. When they look at you, that's what they're supposed to see according to the laws of racism.
Right.
And if you understand that, because that's the truth, then you calm down. Once you understand you're a prisoner of war, and that's all you are, that's all you ever have been, then that makes you calm, I think, because it makes me calm. When I understood that, I stopped being emotional about it. I said, I understand it now, you know.
Well, the way you broke it down, Mr. Fuller, it has helped me, and I appreciate the platform, Mr. Bobby, but I'm going to take those words of advice to keep myself from doing anything non-constructive and being positive as much as I can be. But that's a hard thing to swallow.
Well, just be constructive. Just forget about the words. Always watch your words. Constructive. Now, in answer to your question directly, persistence. That's why I brought up the illustration of Andy Dufresne in the movie Shawshank Redemption. He started writing letters because he said he wanted a library in the prison. Okay? And the warden kind of laughed at him and said, well, you can write all the letters you want. They're not going to pay any attention to you. But he says, well, I got nothing but time. All right? That's all I got. That's all you all are giving me is time to this while away. So I'm going to use my time writing letters. And say, well, how many letters are you going to write? Well, as many letters as it takes to get what I'm after. And that's exactly what he did. So finally, he got a response to the letter. Say, we're tired of getting your letters, so we're going to provide you with some funds for the library. We don't want to hear from you anymore. And he said, after they sent him that letter saying he would be provided the funds, then what did he do? He said, from now on, I'm going to write 2 letters a week.
And that makes sense.
There's a lesson in that scene.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, JJ.
Well, thank you for your response, sir, and thank you, Mr. Bobby, for the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you calling in. Don't be a stranger, my brother, and thank you for the chat room, too. Okay. All righty. Let's go to KY. Let me see if I can get you in here up on the screen. There you go. KY. Okay, you're live with Mr. Fuller. Good morning.
Hello. My name is actually Swa. I think.
Wa. Okay. Okay.
Swa.
Okay. The K is silent. Okay. All right. Go ahead, sir.
S-U-A. Swa. Anyways, Neely Fuller. It's an honor to speak with you because of your work and the work of Dr. Francis Cress-Welsing. I started a book club, and myself and many other non-white people are on this collective journey of learning about the white mind and how to codify ourselves against racism and white supremacy. But my question for you, Neely Fuller, is do you have any more techniques on protecting one's spirit from the many negative energies that white supremacy creates?
Do I have any what?
any more techniques or more ways that you are able to protect your spirit and energy from the effects of racism and white supremacy?
Protect your spirit and energy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the only answer I can give is through what I just said before and what I have consistently been saying. What do you do? What you do is ask questions and get answers to your questions. Because of what? The codified principle. And I'm going to have to keep repeating it. It's not one way to do it. Questions and answers. Why? Because all problems, see, whatever you're talking about, whether you're talking about spiritual problems or whatever, all problems, without exception, are solved through the process of questions and answers. That's not Neely Fuller's philosophy. That's the philosophy of logic. That's mathematics. That's the logic of the entire universe. You can't go to the moon and back, or even get there, or even get halfway there, without what? A whole lot of questions and a whole lot of answers to those questions. And you better get it correct, because you don't get a second chance. All right?
And when talking about racism and white supremacy, the people who refuse to see the truth and reality, should they just be pushed aside and not thought about? And should we just focus on the non-whites who are capable of taking the information and using it?
Oh, wait a minute. Slow down. I might have to go over that question again. Because one thing we have to have, definitely, in the codification is absolute clarity. So the question is what?
So when talking about racism and white supremacy, for the non-white...
Okay, let's get it straight, the first part. When you're talking with someone about racism, white supremacy, now, what's the rest of it?
If that non-white person refuses to accept the truth of racism and white supremacy, should they be should we give our energy to them to try to help them see the reality, or should we not worry about them?
You don't. Okay, first of all, your procedure. When you talk to anybody about anything, the first thing you want to know is, what does the person want to talk about, and do they want to talk about some problem? That's the first question. Do you want to talk to me, or me talking to you? That's anybody that you encounter. You first want to know if the person wants to talk about what you want to talk about. See, it's not a matter of what you want to talk about, according to the code. It's a matter of what the person that you're talking to wants to talk about. Because people usually want to talk about what's on their mind, not what's on your mind. So you have to follow that logic. So usually if you're talking to people, somewhere along the line, that person will start talking about a problem that he or she has. Then you go into the question mode all the way. First question is, what is the problem that you're talking about? You say you have a problem. A person says, I want to talk to you about something, man. I got a problem. Oh, okay. Now we're ready to talk. That's the best time to talk to someone, is when that person tells you that they have a problem, not your problem. You telling them. I mean, usually people, they'll just kind of they may be interested, but they can kind of be laid back about you talking to them about a problem that you have, and definitely don't try to go and open up a conversation to a black person about race. The code says you don't do that. The code says you talk about race once the person lets you know that that's what they want to talk about. So in answer to your question, I think that might get to the heart of what you're saying. You don't ever bring up the race issue to anyone, even though you come in with that on your mind, because you know that is the main problem on the planet Earth. And all problems lead to the race problem. But you don't lead anybody there. That's not the codified procedure. The codified procedures wait for someone to say something about race. Now they open the door, and you walk right in and say, oh, are you talking about a race problem? Okay. What problem do you have with race, racism, or whatever it is you want to say? And then you ask the person. Stay in the question lane. People will take you where they want you to go. And you won't be having arguments, if I understand what your question was. I think a lot of people do ask that question. How do you get it over to black people? I mean, you start talking to them about race, and they'll start arguing with you, and the next thing you know, you're in a shouting match, and it's just a hard job. First of all, you don't approach anybody, white or non-white, talking about racism. You approach a person saying, what problem do you have? If you're going to talk to them at all, and you're talking about solving problems, you don't tell them they have a race problem. You ask them, what problem do they have? And everything else will fall in line. If you're talking to a black person, whatever problem that black person has, it's going to lead to the race problem. That's a guarantee, because that's where all roads lead.
Yeah, I know.
If you're a person of color.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, my brother. And as always, do not be a stranger. Thank you so much. All righty. Everybody, you are now listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, simply call this number, 516-453-9921. Be sure, ma'am, be sure, sir, to press the number 1 button, and you'll go to the top of the line. Or you can do, just as several callers are doing right now, just listening. But when you do, make sure you give the screen caller your name so that I may properly introduce you. You can also contact the show by Gmail. That is at 7Mr. Bobby, the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. Now, I cannot promise you that I will read it that particular day, but at some point, if it's not automatically erased, I will attempt to read it and have Mr. Fuller address your question. Chat room is now open, so you can do that, and many people are on the chat room, or in the chat room right now, and if I have time, I will also do that. But welcome to everybody, first-timers also. This is the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard live every Tuesday from 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. Eastern Time here in the concept called the United States. With that in mind, let me do this. We're going to do this a little bit early. Mr. Fuller, since we've been on this subject, let's talk about your book. Let's talk about your books. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Yes. You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. And there are a couple of volumes there. One, 2016, under the title of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, and a equal title called The Textbook Workbook for Thought, Speech, and or Action for Victims of White Supremacy. Now, the book is designed to be addressed not to so-called organizations as such, but to the individual person, what an individual person can do, even if the person is in a number of organizations. that person still can use this book as a guide when there's no members of their quote unquote organization around. You're with yourself more than you're with anybody. So if you are a person classified as non-white and you are not around any other non-white people, you should have a guide as to what you do and don't do. That's why I call it the Compensatory Counter-Racist Code, which is another title. And this is one of the titles of the book, the 2016 edition, a Compensatory Counter-Racist Code. And that United Independent Compensatory Code System concept addresses, that's a lot of words, a lot of $2 words, that mean you're united with an idea, not with other people. You don't have any unity with anybody, but you are united with concepts if you unite yourself with concepts. Well, what type of concepts? And what is a concept? With ideas. Those are concepts about the way to do what? Solve problems. So as an individual person, you should be able to solve problems when there's nobody else around. That's something that black people really need. When you don't have anybody else around, you have to know what to do, what to say, what to not do, what to not say, and then what action to take and what action not to take. When you are just alone and there are no other members of your quote-unquote organization, family, whatever, around. Because we have been taught to have a herd mentality. Taught by whom? By the white supremacists. But the white supremacists have a code to follow even when no one else is around. That's what makes them strong as individuals. When you make enough individuals strong, everybody is strong. The white supremacists understand that principle. Black people think that they have to have strength in numbers of black people who are standing shoulder to shoulder, looking mean. We think that's power. All that is just a bunch of prisoners of war standing shoulder to shoulder, looking mean. But if they don't know what to do, don't have a code to follow, what to do, what is the code, what to do, what to not to do, what to say, what not to say, when to say it, when to do it, that works, then that's just a bunch of people who are just like cattle. And you can herd cattle in any direction because cattle don't have any kind of guide. They just do whatever somebody with a whip says do. That's the mentality of black people all over the world. But when you have a code, there's certain things you do, certain things you're not going to do. Certain things you're going to say in a certain way, in a precise way when you say it. Every time it works. The white supremacists are the most codified people in recorded history. That's why just one or two of them can show up and handle every situation that comes up. Why? They have the white code, that's why. And that's what I trying to write. In these textbooks, that's the beginning of what we call a counter-racist code. And then eventually we'll produce what we call universal man and universal woman. Meaning what? Someone who as individuals, people who as individual people can function with maximum constructive ability wherever they are in the known universe. We should become the type of people that you can drop us off in any forest or any desert, and we will function with maximum constructive ability. Universal man, universal woman. We don't want to shortchange ourselves just by becoming what we call strong black people in the ghetto, strong black people in the quote-unquote black community. We need to get out of that archaic mentality. That's retarded. And think of ourselves as people who can function anywhere in the known universe with maximum constructive ability. And that's what the textbook for victims of racism is supposed to be designed to help us do.
Okay. All right.
You can get it by going to producejustice.com.
Okay.
Producejustice.com.
Okay. Chat room is open. KJ is in there. Just Want to Chat is in there. Jacoby Tucane is in there. Transcendent just joined the conversation, so we do thank you. 516-453-9921 is the number to get in contact with the show, and make sure that you press the number 1 button, and you will go to the top of the line, or you can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. All righty, let's go to the phone lines. Doris, I will get to your Gmail momentarily, but let's go to the phone lines, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce your name, but say your name, and then that way I won't butcher it up, but you're on live with Mr. Fuller. What's your first name here?
Sajad.
Go ahead. I'm sorry?
Sajad.
Okay, Sajad, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please, sir.
Yes, I have a question. In the revised edition of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept Book, on page 76, Mr. Fuller, you write, practice buying only those things that you need in order to accomplish something of constructive value, and need only that you buy. So my question is, for the victims of racism, white supremacy, where did we get that idea of our mindset of buying things we don't need?
We got it from the idea of showing off to other black people. If you watch black people, which included myself, we are taught at an early age to do one thing. That's why we get bored with school and all like that. We don't want to do anything that doesn't have anything to do with showing off. We get real lazy if it's not connected with showing off. Showing off to whom? Showing off to other black people. We look forward to doing that, if we tell the truth, more than anything else. We care about that more than we care about anything. Showing off what? And these are listed in the textbook for victims of white supremacy. They're in there. It's in that basic book, same book, the 4 show-offisms. Showing off the things that the white supremacists produce and let us have in the prison system called the system of white supremacy. Oh, I got to have this. I got to have this new pair of shoes. I got to have this new this. I got to have this new hairdo. I got to have this. Why do you have to have that? That hairdo that you're sitting there taking 9 hours to do. Now, what is it going to do for you when you get out of that chair and walk down the street or walk among a bunch of people or whatever? What is it supposed to produce for you that's going to really work for you? I mean, that magic thing is going to happen now that you got it. What you're going to do with it is show off. Oh, show off. Show off to whom? Well, to whomever's looking. Well, who do you aim that looking at? Who do you want to look at you with your shoes, with that new coat that you're wearing, if it's something that you bought, or if it's something you did to your hair or to your face, or that new tattoo you got? Whom are you trying to attract? See, you're sending a message. That's why you went through all that effort. spend all that money? You're trying to attract somebody. You don't do all this and then go out in the desert and just sit and look at space. You go among people. Now, what people do you want to go among, and for what reason? Well, it comes down, if you observe black people, to show off what you didn't have before. That new thing that you got, new car, new shoes, new hairdo, show off. Now, what are you going to get in return for all this showing off that you spent all this money for? They're going to look at you. And they're going to make some type of judgment about you. And then they're going on about their business. That's what you're going to get. They're not going to give you anything. But we think that we got to do that as a matter of life and death. Got to do it. Got to do it. I got to get out here and show off what I got. Show it off to whom? And what do you get as compensation? Well, I get the satisfaction for them looking at me. Okay, so somebody's looking at you. And you got satisfaction from that. Now what? That's Act 1. What's Act 2? Go and get something else to show off again. Now, I hope I'm answering your question. Because, see, that's what we have been trained to do. And the white supremacists love it. They love for us to have that primitive mentality, because that's exactly what that is, because it doesn't produce anything.
Mm-hmm.
The value of that is absolute zero. It's minus zero. Spend all this time and energy impressing a whole bunch of prisoners of war, which is what you are. Walking around in the prison yard saying, look at my new prison shoes. Look at my new prison tattoo. And the warden looks down from his high mountain, from his high tower, meaning the white supremacists, and they say, that's exactly the way we want them.
Alrighty. All right, my brother from the 972, which I believe is the Dallas area. Thank you for your call. And don't be a stranger. Let's see here. This is what I'm going to do. I got Daryl, and let's see. I have, I believe it's Transcendent. And then let's do this here. Transcendent says this, Mr. Fuller. Let's see. He says there are families who are purchasing land in Georgia as a safe haven for themselves. What suggestion can you offer for this to be successful? Can you explain what happened when the Nation of Islam tried to buy farmland in the 60s? And Mr. Fuller, can you give your observation as to why the racist white supremacists pick which group is their favorite and which is not?
Okay, well, I'll answer the first question because I'm not, I have a memory problem when it comes to questions.
Okay, I'll be slower then. Yeah, this is about the land
but
in Georgia.
I'll just answer the first one first, and then the next one, and you can help me retain what the second question was.
Oh, right, I will do that.
So that first question was.
There are families who are purchasing land in Georgia as a safe haven for themselves. What suggestion can you offer for this to be successful?
Well, it depends on what they call success. Now, the code book says you can buy land just like you can buy a pair of shoes or whatnot if the prison masters allow you to buy land. Now, there are black people who are standing on land. I mean, some of the richest land all over the world, I've been led to believe, is a place called, quote, unquote, Africa. That's a lot of land from what I've seen on a map, starting way back years, decades ago. They're standing on the land. So standing on some land, all right, now what's the next thing you do? Well, you cultivate the land, I guess. But remember, whomever owns you also owns everything that you say you own. And it doesn't make any difference whether it's a car or a pair of shoes or a spoon and fork or 10 million acres of land. Whomever owns you also, quote unquote, owns whatever you own. So keep in mind, yes, if the white supremacists allow you to buy some land, land is valuable, if it is valuable, but the white supremacists will tell you the value of that land because the white supremacists will first of all tell you the value of what? You.
Okay.
Whatever you own, if you're black on this planet Earth, the white supremacists first of all say, what is this black person worth? Because you're not going to, whatever you have, it's not going to be worth any more than what you are. And to the white supremacists, you're worth absolute zero. Why? Because you are under them. And they say what a black person is worth, which means they also say what a black person's land is worth, or a car is worth, or food is worth, or anything. So a person can go ahead and do that, but remember, you're not getting away from the white supremacists by buying land. I mean, the white supremacists own the planet because they're the most powerful people on the planet. Anytime I can make people do what I want them to do, that person that I can make do what I want them to do doesn't own anything because they don't own themselves. Keep that in mind.
Okay. Part two of that question is, can you, Mr. Fuller, explain what happened when the Nation of Islam tried to buy farmland in the 60s?
Oh, I've heard all kinds of things, but I don't know.
Okay.
I just know what I read in books and all like that. So the best people to ask about that type of thing, and this is strictly code, is someone who knows. And that would be someone who is in that Nation of Islam. That would be the person to talk to. You don't talk to anybody else. You talk to a person who is a member of the group and who knows about that. They give you the information.
Okay. And finally, the third in this trilogy says, Mr. Fuller, can you give your observation as to why the racist white supremacists pick which group is their favorite and which is not? They permit these non-white people like Asians, Chinese, Vietnamese, etc., or Mexicans, Pakistanis, East Indians, etc., to have their businesses / communities without destroying them. Yet, in capital letters, they have historically prevented this same self-sufficient status to so-called black people. Thank you for your answer.
A prison master can appoint whatever prisoner they want to appoint to whatever position the prison master wants that person to have. That's the logic. That's what master means. That's what supreme means. That word supreme, many people avoid it. They don't like for me to use it or hear anybody else use it within a racial context. But you have white supremacists. They're the smartest, most powerful people on the planet among the people of color. The people of color are beholden to them. And the people of color, non-white people, people classified as non-white, are subject to the system of white supremacy. assign in that system the people, racist man and racist woman, who are the white supremacists, the most powerful people on the planet. They can tell people, they can assign whatever people they want to where they want them to be. They say, well, you can call yourself Pakistani, but for my own reasons, I'm classifying you as non-white, and I'm going to put you over there where those people who are called black in the northwestern hemisphere are, and that's where you can open your little store. And the people can come in there and rob you, and you can argue with them, and you get to the place you got an attitude toward them, and they got an attitude toward you, and you all can spend the rest of your days going back and forth with your little petty arguments, because I don't consider any of you as being worth anything anyway. You're just some more of my prisoners. But I keep you busy fighting each other about those scraps of potato chips that I allow you to have, or whatever little liquor that I allow you to give them. And then they argue about that, and they fight about the price and this, that, and the other. And the people who are over there, I don't give them any money, so they'll be stealing from you. And you'll be spending most of your time trying to hide behind some glass to keep them from stealing. And finally, you just might give up on them and move somewhere else. But I ain't going to allow you to move too far into where I don't want you to be, because you, or whatever religion you might have or whatever, I don't care about that either, because I don't really care about you, because you're non-white, okay? So, but that's how I handle it. Just keep you people busy, going around in a circle, struggling, fighting among yourselves. That's what I do. That's how I got to be masters of the world. Keep them fighting among themselves.
Okay.
Just don't let them spill that fight over on my yard, because then I'll knock all their heads together.
Okay. This is what we're going to do here. We got about 2 minutes left in this first hour. The next hour, we're going to have Daryl, Latasha, and Sua. I'm going to try to answer your question here. But let's do this. You have been listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, simply dial 516-453-9921 and be sure to press the number 1 button, and you will go to the top of the line. You can also do this. You can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com, and I will effort to read your Gmail today, but if not today, at some point I will do that unless it gets cut off. You can also go to the chat room. Now, there's no guarantee that I'll read your chat, but I will try to do that. Chat room this day is blowing off the hook. We're grateful. Mr. Fuller and I are grateful for your listenership. Now, there's Warp on there, Transcendent, Sua, KJ, or JJ, Just Want to Chat, Jacoby, too, and this last one, I can't even pronounce that. But thank you all for doing that. And then M Dream, Jakari, and Bunbo from the Gmail, if I can get to you. But we have to get the calls first, or we're trying to get the calls first. Okay, you have all your numbers. Oh, yes, please, ma'am, please, sir, when you do call, please give the call screener your name so that I can properly introduce you, as I am just getting ready to do with Daryl. Okay, Daryl from the 717. You're on. Go ahead, my brother.
Yeah, but if it's not...
Wait a minute. You have to cut that down in the background because we can't...
I'm going to do it this time.
Okay, you're on? Okay,
yeah.
Daryl?
So we'll find that out.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Hello?
Yeah, we're having some background noises here. But go ahead.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, I can. We can hear you. Go ahead.
I have a VGQ and a question. Is that okay?
If it's quick, yes, because we're lined up here.
Yes. The first question, the only question is, how do you know when you have achieved universal status?
How do you know when you have what?
Achieved universal status. Well, for me, for a man, how do you know when you have achieved that status?
Oh, you can't receive that status until you're out from under white supremacy. That's number one. It's impossible to be universal man. It's impossible to be any kind of man if you are a person of color and a male. You're a boy in the system of white supremacy. When they say boy, they're not name calling. That's the correct designation. You never grow into manhood of any kind. You can never be a man if you're a person of color in the system of white supremacy. You have to get rid of the system of white supremacy and replace it with something else. But it's impossible for any male who has color in his or her skin.
Sir, I'm sorry. We cannot continue if that noise in the background is going to continue because it's interfering with what Mr. Fuller has to say. So can you try to correct that, please, sir? Okay. Hello? Okay, Darnell, I am so sorry. We just can't compete with that noise. Try to call back when that noise is not there. Okay, let's go to Latasha. Latasha, let's see here. Yes, okay, Latasha, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for bringing me in. I just have a few questions. He had touched base on a lot of things. One of the things he was talking about in regards to the land that black people are trying to obtain. Carolina, I was born and I was raised there, and then I relocated when I got older. And, you know, I had this conversation plenty of times with a lot of different friends, whatever. But a lot of black people own their land, and the land has stayed in their family for generations. I know where I'm from, at least on my father's side, which is on the outskirts of Florence in the country area. Like, they actually have roads that are named after the families because they've been there for so long, and they always keep their land. So I don't understand what you're saying about the land ownership and white supremacy. I wasn't understanding that. And another thing that I was not understanding, well, first of all, I don't know what his definition of racism. I do understand racism. I do understand white supremacy. I read books by Francis Cressland, so I'm very knowledgeable in the area. I'm 46 years old. But another thing he was talking about that black people show off, I kind of feel a little offended by that because I think he collectively speaking, categorized black people as being show-offs. And yes, us as black people, we have our issues and it's things that, our people need to work on. But for you to make a statement to say that that's what we do, I kind of tend to disagree with that because, my circle of friends, even as far as females are concerned, we're all good women. We have good jobs, and we don't make dumb decisions. We have good jobs. We pay our taxes. We are very informative about what's going on in America. So I'm just a little confused in regards to how he actually feels about black people because while I was on the call, I kind of feel like even though some of the stuff that you're saying, I agree with some stuff, I will kind of debate with it, but it comes across, and I mean no disrespect, Mr. Fuller, it kind of comes across that you just not giving, black people a chance. Because you also have to understand, you're dealing with different generations. You're older than me. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I know about my history. I know my history. And a lot of times I had to do further research to understand my history. But we also have a generation, at least me, that don't get any of that. The only thing they know is Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. That's it. They don't know nothing else. So my thing is when you talk about white supremacy, what is your definition of that, and do you think that, and how do you think that we can deal with that? What would be your answer for Black people to deal with white supremacy? Because it's there. The question should be, how do we deal with it?
Well, you said quite a lot, and I don't understand most of what you're saying. But the pictures I'm getting is that you apparently may have a disagreement with a lot of the things that I am saying. So do you have a textbook for the victims of white supremacy, the book that I wrote? Maybe I can start off doing that. Do you have the textbook for victims of white supremacy by Neely Fuller Jr.?
Okay, I don't have it, but I'm on the website.
Well, wait a minute. Let's slow down.
Order it.
Wait a minute. Let's slow down, ma'am. See, I'm kind of difficult for me to pick up, so everything must move slow in codification.
Okay.
And so the question is, do you have the textbook?
I don't have it.
You don't have it.
I do not have it.
Are you saying you don't have? Oh, no. Are you saying you don't have the book?
I don't have it.
Yes or no?
No, I don't have it.
Okay. Well, then that would be the first step toward you to understand what I've said, or you can continue to listen to the programs like this. That's the codified procedure. I hope I'm not cutting you off or being impolite, anything like that, because that's a no-no on my part. I hope I'm not being discourteous. But the way to solve all problems, and there appears to be a problem with you understanding what I am saying. So in order to do that, the best thing to do, first of all, is listen to the programs here on producejustice.com and the other programs I've recorded before. And the main thing is probably to get the textbook to start with, and then you get a better understanding. Maybe. I'm not the best writer in the world at all. And it's not for you to agree or disagree. It's for your choice. You can disagree with everything that I'm ever going to say. I'm not defending what I'm saying. I'm just saying understanding what I'm saying. That's why I'm on the air. I'm just trying to get people to understand what I'm saying, not to agree. In fact, I always say, and if you've listened to previous programs, I always say, don't believe anything that Neely Fuller says about anything. Just go and take a look for yourself and make up your own mind.
What you're saying.
That is. Well, let me say this. Let me finish. That is a part of the code itself. See, it's not. It's not the old-fashioned way. I say is old-fashioned way of trying to come to an agreement with Neely Fuller. Neely Fuller is nobody. You don't have to agree with him on anything. But whatever your reality is, if you are comfortable with it and you can go forward with it, that's what the code is all about.
Okay,
not just you saying what is on your. Hold it just a minute. I want you to understand what I'm saying. Everything that you have said could be valid, and everything that I have said could be invalid. Meaning not logical, not the truth, not anything that you should pay attention to. You see, your job in life is not to find a way to agree with Neely Fuller. It's to find a way to agree with what your destiny is. And whatever it is, that's what the whole book is about. You finding yourself, your own way, as an individual person. And not Neely Fuller or somebody that comes down the street 5 minutes from now, or somebody you have talked to. I mean, they're supposed to know everything. I mean, before you. No, you go with your own mind. You were given that.
So
and so that, ma'am, I just want to make this clear. See, because it means you said you were confused. So I'm trying to get rid of the confusion. This approach, the United Independent approach, is unique in that regard, because black people are often told they got to find some other black people who agree with them. No, you don't. You find a way to agree with yourself, and that's what codification is really all about.
Okay, well, I wasn't like, here's the thing. I came on the online and actually went on the website, and I'm very interested in purchasing your book. My questions that I had for you was not to challenge or debate you. It was more for me to learn a little bit more, and I just simply had questions. That's all it was. I'm not challenging you. I don't want to be into a debate. I just want to be educated on things that I'm not aware of, but I have questions because I'm very knowledgeable, and I actually know who I am, and I will definitely get your book and read it because, I think it would be a good book to read, but I had questions that I wanted to get answered to, here's my thing, when I hear you talk about black people, and first of all, I'm not a victim of any of that. And the white supremacy exists, absolutely. It absolutely exists. But to hear you sit there and talk about black people and say we show off, you are making a statement and literally stereotyping us collectively. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair at all because a lot of us are knowledgeable.
Oh, wait a minute. Ma'am, just a minute. Now, what seems to be the problem? I'll put it in the form of a question because, like I've been saying consistently, all problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. So what is the problem that you are having with what Neely Fuller is saying?
My problem is that you come across to literally basically downgrade black people. And,
wait a minute. Slow down. Wait a minute. So I want to see. I can't. Wait a minute, ma'am. If you don't mind, I have to understand exactly what you are saying. You have a problem with my evaluation of black people? Is that what I am to understand?
My problem is how you relay it and stereotype us collectively. And what I was trying to say, I actually run a youth program, and honestly, this is what I say. I hear a lot from my elders.
Well, wait a minute, ma'am. Wait a minute, ma'am. Well, just one thing at a time. See, that's the codified procedure. If you don't mind.
Now let me see.
I know I sound like I'm interrupting, which I am doing, but I have to go according to what the program requires me to do, what the code. One question at a time, one answer at a time. So there is a problem, and that's my evaluation of black people. Is that correct or incorrect? That's the problem.
I think you are generalizing all black people collectively.
Okay, that is a problem. I got that. Now, what is it that I have said about black people that I should not have said? That's the question. All problems are solved through the process of questions and answers. So what is the specific thing, starting with number one, even if it's a number of things, the number one problem that I am making, really, because I'm either making a problem or solving one. So I'm saying something about black people that should not be said. That's the understanding I'm getting. So what is it that I have said?
The thing that I'm trying to relate to you, and every time I try to talk, you keep cutting me off, and you don't let me make a full statement. And I'm a very respectful woman. My thing to you is you, to me, how it comes across to me, and I'm pretty sure it can come across to a lot of our people. And you collectively stereotyping us as the people. You really are. Because not all blacks are ratchet and doing this I'm not saying that it don't exist, but not all of us, not all of us are show-offs. Not all of us try to impress people. A lot of us are hard-working individuals that, try to be a good person and a good citizen, and it's like the thing about it, what bothers me, and what I was trying to say to you, that I do work with the youth organization and I listen, and a lot of the things that are thrown to me is the fact that a lot of the elders are always knocking them and belittling them because of how they act. Mind you, they act crazy. But understand this, what leaders or what positive people did you, because you're older than me, last the generation after you, they have nothing. They have no history of anything at all. And, the media, I think, hypes a lot of stuff or hypes up a lot of things. They're always focusing on, the bad side of Black America, but they never emphasize the positive things of Black America. They don't. They're not going to never talk about the boys that going to college that actually don't gangbang, that don't smoke and don't drink. Understand this. Our people, yes, we got a lot of issues to work on, but it bothers me when I hear people generalize us and put us in one bucket and act like, we're just righteous. I get offended by that. I'm sorry, hold on, my dad is calling. I'm going to place you guys on hold. My father is calling me right now. I have to
okay, well, thank you for your call, Latasha, and don't be a stranger. Thank you so much. Let me do this. Mr. Fuller, usually I don't do this, but I'm going to do this early, maybe primarily before after this call. But I need you right now to talk about your book, and in particular, what your book says at the beginning of the new edition, and then to speak about your book. That way we won't do it at a quarter till the hour. But what you wrote in 1971, and this is for everybody, including me, even though I've heard this, and all the listeners have heard this many times. Mr. Fuller, do you have that at that page here?
Sure.
Go ahead.
At the beginning of the book, it says,
at the very beginning,
if you do not understand white supremacy, and then in parentheses it has the word racism. If you do not understand white supremacy, racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Now, that's a quote that I made in 1971, officially. I'd been making it long before then, but I made it official in 1971 because I came to that conclusion. If you don't understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. And I believe that, and I believe that's true, because I'm not supposed to be making statements that are not true. And this is for the caller that just called in previous to me making this statement. Neely Fuller is never supposed to say anything that's not true. Period. That's a no-no. And if someone detects that he said something that's not true, he needs to be told that. And then he needs to be told what the truth is. Because if you know that a person is not telling the truth about something, and you know what the truth is, you have a duty to say what the truth really is. The truth is that which is. You say what it really is, what the truth really is, because Neely Fuller is not supposed to be saying anything that's not true. And he needs to be corrected anytime. And I'm willing to listen to anyone who is saying, Fuller, you may be correct about some things, But I got a number of things you ain't correct about at all and don't know what you're talking about. And I'm going to tell you what they are. One, see, that's the best way to codify things according to logic. You structure things so that you can specifically say, now, this thing that you said is not true. Number one. Number two. Number three. Number four. I listen to you say this and say that. Now, that's what the book is about. Find the truth. Because if you start off with anything false, the white supremacists are experts at falsehood. They know when something is false. And they know when you make mistakes, and they know how to exploit every mistake you make. So that actually everything becomes monumentally difficult in the system of white supremacy. If you are non-white and you make any kind of mistake that the white supremacist detects, and you are not aware that you are making that mistake, and you're always making a mistake when you say anything that's not true. If you're black and you're trying to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. So the textbook is about doing just what we were doing with that exercise a while ago, except I was, like the lady said, I was interrupting, and I was, but then we have a limit on time here, so I have to kind of slow things down and try to take just one thing at a time. That's just a codified structure. I have to adhere to that. Otherwise, we have an endless argument, and there's not supposed to be not a single argument in codified procedure. There's not even supposed to be a debate. There are points of view. The code calls it exchanges of view. Why? Because, logically speaking, no one has solved the race problem. So everyone has an equal voice. And I want to make this clear to the lady that called in. Her voice is equal to mine. That elderly thing, or my elders and all like that, that's nowhere in codification at all. The elders have not solved the race problem. The race problem is completely unsolved. So that means who's old and who's young means absolutely nothing. It's who comes up with the formula for solving a problem. That means everything. And it might be somebody who was born 10 years ago. It might be a 10-year-old. The little boy who saw the emperor had no clothes. It might be that person who walks in out of the hills in the middle of all this chaos and all the elders and all the young people and the old people and all the other people in between and says, look at the king. The king ain't got no clothes on. Y'all been wrestling with this problem forever. I can solve this problem in 10 minutes. And somebody who's 10 years old may have the solution to the problem. We don't know because why? No one has solved the race problem yet. So everybody should have a voice in doing that. But we do have time constraints, particularly on something like a radio program. That's one of the flaws in fighting racism. And it's one of the support systems in fighting it. Depends on how it's used. So the best way to use it is that one question, one answer. Next question, next answer, and on and on and on. Why? Because logic has shown that the best procedure for coming to the best conclusions and the best method of solving problems, really the only one, is through individual questions and answers, not just through endless debate.
Okay.
Questions and answers. And you can get the textbook for that by going to producejustice.com. That's what the book is about, this discussion is about.
All righty. Let's do this. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, call 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button, and you will go to the top of the line, as 3 of them are on hold right now. I will try or effort to get to your questions. The chat room is blowing up. I will try or attempt to get to those questions, and of course your Gmails. We're all jammed up in here, but as Mr. Fuller has just stated, we are under a time constraint. That's just the way that it is, and so there's only so much that we can do in the time that we have here. So just try to keep that in mind. And another one has joined, and Mr. Fuller is thorough in answering your questions, so hopefully we will get to that. Okay, let's see here. Let's go to the Gmail here before we go to the question. This comes from Daryl Reeves. He says this: Mr. Fuller, I've heard you say black people shouldn't be proud to be black because nobody got to choose their color, and that makes sense. However, being confident in one's skin color is important rather than feeling inferior because of their color. I mean, I've heard some dark-skinned people say they don't want to have babies with other dark-skinned people for fear of producing dark-skinned babies, which is utterly sad in my opinion. Now, maybe that was VGQ because I didn't see a question there, but that came from Daryl Reeves. Now, he said what he said. Do you want to comment on that, or would you like to go to the phone lines?
No, but I understand the statements.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the statements, and I understand the suggestions, too. And I think that everybody should think about what was said, because that's what the code calls for. That's why we need a code. Pay attention to what was said, and then think, speak, and act the way that you choose to think, speak, and act that will produce what? The most constructive effect. Now, the person made a suggestion that the person should go ahead and have the babies, even though they're going to be black. The babies are going to be black. You know that in advance, so you got a pretty good idea. They may not be. They may come up lighter skin, because black people can produce all of the colors. They can produce yellow. They can produce pretty close to white, and sometimes just about somebody that you would call white, whatever that means. Black people can produce that. You know, that's something that's very, very difficult, if not impossible, for white people to do. White people to come up with people who are dark. But black people can produce brown, yellow, and white, or what we call white, in parentheses. Black people can do that. That's just the metabolism of black people. And that's what a whole lot of white people fear. That if they have sexual intercourse, they may come up with something darker than themselves. And that's a threat to the system of white supremacy. But black people don't have to concern themselves with that. So, but that's the way the structure is.
Okay.
That's the way the creator of the universe made it that way. But black people shouldn't fear that. I agree with the call on that. Just go ahead and do it. And even though you know that someone lighter and who can be considered white is going to get more privileges, more benefits, most likely, depending on what the white supremacists determine. Sometimes the white supremacists will pick somebody who is what you might call blacker than black for a particular position in order to do a particular thing, because they use people of color in a position they want to use them in. That's what supreme means. You can do that. You can pull that off. And nobody's big enough or quote, unquote, bad enough to do anything about it because they don't know what to do about white supremacy because they don't have a code for doing so. That's why.
Okay. All righty. Sousa asked this, says, can you ask Mr. Neely Fuller what does he think the subconscious thinking of the white supremacist is, should we understand them as Dr. Frances Cress Welsing has laid out in her works?
Oh, well, you studied Dr. Welsing's work, and I haven't read the ISIS papers, by the way, myself, where all that is explained. Because when I talked to Dr. Welsing all down through the years, I said, I am not going to concentrate so much on history because we have historians like Dr. Ben, Dr. Chancellor Williams, Dr. John Hendrick Clark. We have historians, and on top of historians, who have done a lot of very meticulous work. So I don't have to retrace their steps. So I will work on not even why white people do what they do, even though that's a very important question, which is what Dr. Welsing said she would work on. And I told Dr. Welsing early on, well, I'm going to work on what to do about it.
Okay.
Because there's a dearth of books on what to do about anything on a day-to-day basis. And that's when I start earnestly concentrating on just that segment. So when people ask me about a lot of history or melanin or things like that, I come up blank. I'm not the person to talk to.
Okay. Was that Brother Ben Yakiman? Did you, when you mentioned Ben?
Yes, Dr. Ben.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He's done. I haven't had time to, to read his work, and just like I just said, I haven't had time to read. I hadn't taken the time to read Dr. Welsing's work.
Yes.
And even when I would speak on the same podium with her, I wouldn't know what she's doing until she says it on the mic. And I learn whatever she has to say, just like everybody else is learning. I never talked to her about melanin and whatnot in detail.
Yes, sir. Okay. Let's go to the phone lines. Daryl is back. Let's see here. Oh, excuse me. Darnell is back. I'm sorry. Darnell, we got you. Go ahead, sir. Darnell? Let me see if I can get you. Darnell? Okay, go do it again. See if I can get him in here. Darnell, are you there? Okay, I can't hear. I can't get you, so I don't know what's going on. We'll do this. Saeed from Dallas, are you there?
Yes.
Hello? Okay, go ahead. All right, go ahead.
Yes, my question is from the 2016 edition of Mr. Fuller's book. On page 81, you write, Mr. Fuller, when talking about ownership and or possession as it pertains to people, say the following. Whoever possesses you also possesses all that you possess. Can you explain that?
Well, I explained it practically in a logical way by repeating what was printed there. I have whoever, could have said whomever. Some people said that either way is correct. Possesses you also possesses all that you possess. Okay, if I can explain that further, it means suppose I have $1 in my pocket and I am a prisoner of war, which is what I am now. And I'm in jail, prisoner of war. I have $1 in my pocket. And the prison warden comes down, the prison master says, Fuller, give me that $1 that you have in your pocket, because I know it's there. And the question is the warden of a prison, the prison master, the slave master, able to make me give him or her that dollar? And the answer is, person is really my master, has domination over me. Can that person make me give them the dollar? When that person is standing there with a loaded gun and I don't have one, and I'm in a small cell where I'm easy to shoot right through the prison bars, and I have a dollar in my pocket, and I say, no, I'm not going to give you this dollar, and if you're going to get it, you're going to have to take it because I will defend it with my life. Well, I tend to believe I just lost my life. If that prison master decides with maybe 17 bullets in that gun to take that dollar off of me one way or another, the best way that I can illustrate what I just said, whomever possesses me also possesses everything that I say is mine, including children, wife, money, car, land. Whomever can tell me what to do, and I got to do it or die, possesses me. Everybody who's ever robbed somebody on the street knows that. But that 5 minutes that person is able to rob you, because they can decide whether you will breathe or not, one more breath, that person possesses you for that 5 minutes. Now, they may take off running after that because whomever possesses them can probably catch up with them. And when it comes to black people, that's the white supremacists. Because they know where you're going. Because they set the place where you're going to go. They know your name, your address, or they can find it out from somebody who does. They possess them too if they're black. So they can find out. They got all kinds of ways. People who can go under the sea or go to the moon and all like that. If they really want you, they can get you.
Yes.
I hope I have made the point.
Okay.
Yes, you did. And thank you, Mr. Fuller, and thank you, Mr. Bobby.
Okay, thank you. In the 972, the Dallas area. Thank you very much. Don't be a stranger. Okay, let's see here. Let's go to Imani. Imani, I think. No, wait a minute. Did I get Imani or? Wait a minute. Who's it? Jacob or Imani?
Hello. This is. I'm Imani.
Okay, go ahead, Imani. Yeah.
Greetings, Mr. Bobby. Greetings, Mr. Fuller, and everybody is on the line. My statements, questions is regarding the previous caller. I believe that she indicated that she was not a victim. The program name is Produce Justice, and on the program there is not a production of justice, and it's due to the idea that there is a global system of racism, white supremacy. Mr. Fuller, you have stated if you identify yourself as not being a victim of racism, white supremacy, I could be wrong, but I thought I heard her say that there's no use for your book. Am I correct?
That's correct. The book is strictly for people who consider themselves to be victims of white supremacy, subject to white supremacy in every area of activity, not in some, but in economics, in education, in entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. The 9 major areas of activity according to compensatory counter-racist logic and the textbook for it, written by Neely Fuller. I came up with those 9 areas. And if you are a victim of racism in any one or more of those areas, then the book is supposed to be written for you. But I didn't hear the lady. The lady was talking kind of fast, and I'm kind of slow. That's where the real problem was.
I could be wrong, but I thought I did hear something in regards to I'm not a victim. There's a lot of non-white people who say that, and the reason why I even called in and brought it up is because if you're not a victim, then we don't want to waste your time and energy. There are people that's on this line who identify themselves as victims of racism, white supremacy, and as Mr. Bobby and yourself, Mr. Fuller, states that we're limited with time and energy. We don't want to waste anybody's time and energy at all. So if you don't have that problem, what you could do is write a book and help us on how to alleviate ourselves from this problem, and or have your own talk program. But other than that, we would like to, as expedient as possible, get our questions in and our dialogue with Mr. Fuller and Mr. Bobby. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, so much, and don't be a stranger, Imani. Thank you so much, my brother. Okay, let's go to Jacob in the 832 area. Jacob, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Hello. Good morning, Mr.
Yes.
Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. I have a quick BDQ in the question. So Mr. Fuller has said on past programs that the white supremacists trained us to think in the box. And my interpretation of that, because that's a metaphor, that we can't think of how things are interrelated. So my question is, how do we become better and more logical question askers?
The question is, what now? Say that again.
How do we become better and more logical question askers?
How do we become better and more logical through questions and answers?
No, sir. How do we become better question askers? And just how can we train ourselves to ask questions in a more logical manner?
Oh, by looking at the problem. See, most questions, when people ask questions, that usually is an indication that there is a problem. That's the nature of a question. And why do you say, well, a question means there got to be a problem involved here somewhere? Because usually people don't ask questions unless there's a problem. See, so the supposition is, according to the code, why are we here in the universe? To solve problems. And what is the procedure for solving problems? It is questions and answers. That's it. I don't know of any problem that's ever been solved unless it was solved through the process of questions and answers. Sometimes it's just 3 questions, and a problem is solved. Once you got the answer to the truthful answer, because there's only one answer and there's got to be a truthful answer, to those questions. And then it might be 1,000 questions. How to get to Mars and back. That might call for 2,000 or 3,000 questions with 2,000 or 3,000 answers. What kind of tools do you use? How much propulsion material do you need? Right down to the last grain, the last gallon, or whatever you're going to use. What type of materials are you going to use to make the spacecraft? What is it going to be made out of? What are you going to encounter? These are all questions. Might be thousands of questions, but every question has an answer. It's just a matter of finding out what the answer is.
Mr. Fuller.
Yes, sir.
So the system of white supremacy is so complex and so expansive, and each victim experience is different and situational. So how would one come up with questions that are, I don't know the correct word for it, but just questions that could work anywhere that you are in a system of white supremacy?
Well, you can start with, according to the code, if you don't know what questions to ask, everybody wants something. So you deal with page, and many times on this program I've gotten the page numbers incorrect because I'm getting kind of up there. Sometimes I make a lot of mistakes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think it's page 171. I have a tendency called, yes, it is, in the textbook for victims of white supremacy. So the first thing you do is ask yourself questions, 4 questions about wants, W-A-N-T-S. And then you branch that out to asking other people the same questions. There's 4 of them. What do I want to do? That's what every person on the planet should wake up in the morning asking him or herself. Not what you have to do. What do I want to do? If I had my druthers, as you say, in slang terms. That's question number 1. Question number 2. Why do I want to do it? Want to do what? Want to do what you want to do. After you answer that first question, so you got to have the answer to the first question before you move to the second one. What do I want to do? Why do I want to do it? That's the second question. Third question. How do I plan to do it? Plan to do what? Plan to do what I want to do. If you want to do something and you got a reason for doing it, you should have a plan for doing what you want to do after you got the reason why you want to do it. Then the fourth question, what you call the real punchline. What do I expect the constructive result to be? You might get up and say, what do I want to do? Starting with question number 1. Well, I want to have a drink of this gin that I didn't finish off last night. Or I want to shoot up a needle in my arm with some heroin in that needle. That's what I want to do. Okay? All right. So far, so well. Number 2, why do I want to do it? Because I usually feel pretty bad. I ain't got no job. Things are going south. You know, ain't nobody treating me right. I don't like nobody. Don't nobody like me. So I want to feel good. That's what I want. I don't want to keep feeling bad all my life. So this heroin makes me feel good. Okay, that's why you want to take a shot out of that needle or a drink of that gin. Why do you want to do it? Because you want to feel good. Okay, all right. Okay, let's move on. Number 3, how do you plan to do it? Well, I plan to do it by reaching over here and getting it. I got it here. I got it right here. All the equipment ready to go. Bottle of gin or a needle and, you know, a little bit of heroin, not as much as I want, you know. But I got some. Why? To feel good. So I plan to reach over here and get it. It's on the dresser. Okay. So far, so well. Now, here's the punchline. What do you expect the constructive result to be? Now, that's in anything that you do. You might say, what do you want to do? I want to be an electrical engineer. Just like you plan and all like that. You're talking about wants. Everybody wants something. Every bird wants something. Every minute of the day. Every creature on the planet wants something. There's somebody probably listening to this program who wants to get on this line and tell Neely Fuller that he needs to go and throw that book that he wrote in the trash. That's what he wants to do. Everybody wants something. Okay? So in answer to your question, sir, you always start, even in a conversation with someone, by finding out what the person wants to do, what they want to do it, how they plan to do it, and what they expect the constructive result to be. And you start with yourself asking that question. And if you're talking to someone else, why? Because you get the whole frame of reference about everybody. This will apply to everybody because everybody wants something. But you can find out just through those 4 questions of how to start any kind of conversation anywhere. And with those questions and the answers to those questions, you got a conversation going automatically.
Right. Jacob, thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Do not be a stranger. Okay, let's do this. We got about 5 minutes. Latasha, I think I put it correctly. You're back. Okay, go ahead, Latasha. Hello, Latasha?
Yes, I'm here. So,
okay, go ahead. Okay.
Mr. Neely, I have a question. And again, my question is really for me to learn. So it's by no means any disrespect. So I just heard you were talking about, people doing drugs and they do it to feel good. And, drugs is an issue in the black community. I definitely agree with that. But the thing is, like you talking about the effect, let's get back to the cause. You understand what I'm saying? When they start breaking down black families and incarcerating black men and putting welfare into the system and destroying the black family, and people get hopeless. So it's not just black people on drugs. Anytime it's a lot of different nationalities that are on drugs. And, the way that you phrase it, that they do it because they just want to do it. Yes, they are responsible for themselves, but collectively speaking, it's an epidemic that was literally basically drugs are put into our community. Even if we go back into the 60s, things are put into our community to weaken us and to divide us. And yes, we do play a part in that. And the next thing I wanted to say to you was, do you think that when we talk about white supremacy, would you be in agreement for us to be separate? Do you think blacks should be over here and we have our own schools, we have our own police system? Do you think we should be separate? Because that's what I think. I think we should be separate from this, period.
Okay, I'll try. Hold it just a minute, because see, clarity and focus is what we have to have in codification. So I'm trying to get clarity and focus on what your question is.
Okay, my first question is
So what is your question?
My first question is this. Do you believe that we should be separate from white America? Do you believe that...
Oh, wait a minute. Hold it. Hold it, ma'am. Codification means you never move to the second question until the first question is answered. Okay, so what is the first question?
Do you think that we should be separate? Do you think it should be a white America?
Wait a minute. Hold it. Do I think that we should do what?
Be separate. White America.
Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I didn't hear those last 2 words or 3 words. Be what? Be separate?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Did you say separate?
Yes.
Do I think that we should be separate. Is that the question?
Yes, separate from white
Well,
people.
hold it. Is that the question?
Separate from white people, that's the question.
Oh, separate from white people.
Yeah, it's like black nation here, white
Well, wait a
nation
minute.
here.
I'm trying to get the question. See, everything in codification. That's the first thing I have to learn. Everybody has to learn in order to what? Get clarity and focus. Why? But without clarity and focus, everybody goes around in a circle. So how do you get clarity?
My question is very direct.
Your question is, does Neely Fuller think that we should be separate from white people? Now, my question is that the question?
Yes.
Separate how? See, I had to answer a question like that about 3 weeks ago.
So let me say this, separate in all ways, in every way possible. I think separate in all ways that you could think of, for as living, for as policing our community, for as our educational system, for as, our political system. Do you think that if we were to unite and be together as the black people and not deal with them, do you think it will help us as people, as a people? Because you said the white supremacy, it definitely exists, but do you think that we will be better off as a people if we stayed away from them and build our own nation?
I don't know. It comes down to whether or not you think that we should be separate, and then it comes down to how could you do that in a system of white supremacy? That out.
It has been done before.
And
it has been done before. It can be done.
Wait a minute. What's your answer?
Okay, so let me say this to you. I think it can be done because in any major city that you go to, you always going to have a little Chinatown. China has their own little nation inside of a nation. And if we go back in history, if we go back to, even back to the Oklahoma, the blacks had everything. They had their banks, they had their businesses, and they was functioning by themselves without white. And, unfortunately, they came and burned and riot and do all of that.
Yeah.
My question is very simple. Do you think us as black people, would it be more wise for us to unite and stay amongst ourselves and separate from them?
Okay. Latasha, Mr. Fuller, I am so sorry to interrupt, but we have run out of time. Latasha, please call back next week, please. Same way for you, Darnell. We have just run out of time, and we're going to have to end the show. So thank you for all your calls. Thank you for listening. Mr. Fuller, before we go, could you repeat the beginning of each book that you have in there, that statement you made in 1971?
The statement is, if you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you.
With that, we thank you, Mr. Fuller. We thank you, all the callers, all the Gmailers, all of the chat room people. It was an outstanding show. We hope to do better next week. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
I hope to do better and need to do better. Thank you. Thank all the callers.
Yes.
Everyone.
All right. Thank you.